The ending of Untamed was centered around Special Agent Kyle finally uncovering the identity of the individual who had killed a girl called Lucy. Kyle had recently lost his son Caleb and was feeling pretty suicidal. When he got the call to look into the alleged death by suicide of Lucy, the federal officer decided to dedicate his life to ensuring she got justice. Things spiraled out of control pretty quickly. A meth lab was discovered in the caves of Yosemite National Park. Several people died. The chaos spilled over into Kyle's personal life, and he ended up assaulting Shane, a guy that he claimed that he just didn't like because of their shared history. However, when he found a video of Shane on Lucy's phone, he was sure that he was the one who had been killed since. With the exception of the drug peddlers, Shane was the only one who lived in the woods with a hunting rifle. Even though Kyle had been suspended, he decided to confront Shane after informing his ex-assistant Nia and his ex-wife Jill about his plan. And right when he found the pill bottles that bore the same mark that was on Lucy's wrist in Shane's tent, the wildlife management officer shot Kyle in the gut. Did he survive the ordeal? Did he find who had actually killed Lucy? With a major spoiler warning, let's discuss. How did Shane die? Despite getting shot in the gut, Kyle managed to put some distance between himself and Shane. But since he was bleeding out and Shane was in tip-top shape, the latter caught up to Kyle and was about to send him to Caleb. Thankfully, Nia had gotten good at tracking, almost as good as Kyle and Shane, and she arrived at the scene to save Kyle. She shot Shane once to stop him from killing Kyle, but Shane didn't see that as a warning. Hence, he tried to kill Nia, which was when she shot Shane in the chest and killed him. Kyle was severely injured, but after he was taken to the hospital, the doctors made sure that he'd live to tell the tale. Paul, Kyle's friend, and the chief park ranger in USEED was glad to see that Kyle was all right, and so was Nia. She informed Kyle that based on the drugs, guns, and cash retrieved from Shane's camp, as well as the video of Shane and Lucy, it's possible that the wildlife management officer had some kind of an arrangement with Lucy. Kyle theorized things must have gone south between them, which was why Shane ended up killing Lucy. And while Nia continued that conversation with Kyle, Paul gave a call to Jill, asking her to come and meet him. However, she decided to stay home and come clean to her current husband, Scott, about why Shane had been such an integral part of her and Kyle's lives now that he was gone. Back in the day, a man named Sean had abducted and killed Caleb. Shane's motion sensor cameras, which were meant to capture wildlife activity, had captured Sean going after Caleb. That was proof enough to arrest the man and send him to jail. Kyle had wanted to make sure that this whole situation was dealt with in a lawful manner. But Jill was not okay with watching her son's killer trying to fight for his innocence. Hence, she paid Shane to kill Sean. And well, that's what he did. There are two things to be noted here. Usually in narratives like this, writers push the whole alpha male out for revenge agenda by having a man do the eye for an eye thing because, well, that's how it has been for decades. But in Untamed, that trope is flipped on its head, and you have a woman doing the same. However, the ultimate result is negative because killing Sean didn't fix anything. In fact, it made everything worse. Kyle felt betrayed by Jill's actions. The realization that killing Sean not only broke her marriage, but also prevented them from healing properly because every time they'd think about Caleb, the unlawful way in which Sean was murdered would inevitably come up. Was eating Jill from the inside, and now the decision that Jill took all those years ago was about to ruin her second marriage. With all that said, by openly admitting to Scott who she truly was as a person, Jill at least didn't have to pretend anymore that she was all right. She gave Scott the choice to leave her just like Kyle did. The show didn't confirm whether Scott decided to pack his bags or chose to stay and help in Jill's healing process after that damning revelation, but given how much he loved her, I suppose he'll opt for the latter. In fact, I think he opted for the latter, which was why Jill told Kyle that she'll be all right while visiting him at the hospital. To be honest, the emotional dynamics in Jill and Kyle's final scene were quite complicated. Firstly, she was assuring him that he wouldn't have to worry about her anymore because maybe Scott had decided to stick with her even after knowing what she'd done. Secondly, I guess she was apologizing for making Shane such an important aspect of their lives just because she wanted revenge. Thirdly, I think she was rekindling their shared memories of Caleb so that he wasn't defined by Sean's actions or Jill's heat-of-the-moment decision to have Sean killed. And it was because of this nuanced handling of the culmination of their marital arc that Kyle didn't tell Esther, the lawyer that Sean's family had hired to look into his disappearance, that Jill had had Sean killed. I have a feeling that this will be seen as a controversial decision because Kyle had broken off his marriage because of Jill's illegal action. However, when it came to abiding by the law, he chose not to treat Jill like a criminal, thereby forcing Sean's loved ones to spend their whole life in a state of ambiguity. But let's be real, anyone in Kyle's position would have done the same. He saw that Jill was atoning for her sin, and he knew that after all this time, neither Sean's soul nor his family deserved any kind of closure. So, I don't know about everyone else, but I think Kyle did the right thing by lying to Esther about Jill's involvement, or even Shane's involvement for that matter, because he was just a hired gun in Sean's death. How did Paul die? Shane was definitely guilty of getting Lucy involved in the drug smuggling happening in Yosemite National Park. But he wasn't guilty of killing Lucy. Paul was. Yes, Lucy was the illegitimate child that Paul had with Maggie. Maggie's husband, Rory, was an abusive man, which might have been the reason why she sought solace in Paul's arms. Paul's own marriage with Mary was going through a tumultuous time because of their drug-addicted daughter, Kate. And maybe Paul escaped from his life by being with Maggie. While Mary was ignorant about all this or chose to ignore it all, Rory probably sensed what was going on after Maggie got pregnant and became all the more abusive. The cancer-stricken Maggie in her dying days pleaded with Paul to get Lucy away from Rory and keep her safe. Paul carried out her dying wish, but instead of accepting Lucy as a part of his family, he took her to the Gibbs foster home in Nevada, changed her name to Grace, and abandoned her with a fake promise to return to her one day. Rory was accused of having a hand in Lucy's disappearance or death. And when he was eventually killed in a random act of violence at a bar for Paul, that was the end of his responsibilities towards Lucy. I don't know if he cared that Lucy was out there rotting away in a horrible foster home, or that he had robbed Kyle of the opportunity to solve yet another case after Caleb's death. But Paul convinced himself for 15 very long years that it was okay that he had prioritized Mary and Suddy, his granddaughter, over Lucy and Kyle's physical and mental well-being. But of course, it all came back to bite Paul in the butt. Kyle was borderline suicidal, and Lucy ran away from the foster home and traveled all the way from Nevada to Yosemite to make Paul pay for his sins. As per Paul, she started extorting him with her financial demands increasing with each passing day because the least he could do after all those years of torture was compensate her monetarily. While Paul kind of monitored Kyle and kept him from drowning in a bottle of liquor, he had no option but to fulfill Lucy's demands because she had the power to destroy the life that he had painstakingly created. Yet Lucy chose to escalate the situation by kidnapping Suddy with the aim of leaving her off at the Gibbs foster home, so that the granddaughter that Paul supposedly loved more than Lucy would go through the exact same ordeal that Lucy had gone through. The only difference this time would be that Paul would actually feel some pain because he clearly loved Suddy more than Lucy, as Sati was his flesh and blood while Lucy was a mistake. Instead of just ignoring the consequences of his actions, Lucy apparently didn't follow through on that plan and abandoned Suddy somewhere near Maggie's old house. And she was safely brought back home by Paul. Now, I guess here's where Paul's tale will start to sound weird because he claimed that after ensuring that Sadie was safe and sound, he went after Lucy to have a chat while carrying his hunting rifle with him. Lucy didn't want to listen to Paul, so Paul shot her in the leg. And then she was apparently mauled by coyotes or bears after she chose to kill herself by diving off El Capitan. However, in my opinion, everything in Paul's tale after Lucy's return to Yosemite was a lie simply because there was no way to confirm it. We got recreations of the scenes where Lucy ran up the cliff and then dove off it, but we didn't see any of the scenes of Lucy extorting Paul. There's no objectivity to Paul's statements. We just have to take his word for it. The word of a man who's hellbent on protecting his clean family man image. No way. I'm not buying that. I'm not even buying the story of Rory getting killed by random people who were enraged by the allegation that he had killed Lucy. Isn't it possible that Paul had him killed so that he couldn't plead for his innocence and then start an investigation into Lucy's disappearance? Because that would have exposed the fact that Paul had not only abducted Lucy, but also let her rot in a horrible foster home. Also, if Paul intended to hash it out with Lucy, why did he carry a bloody hunting rifle? If he wanted to fire a warning shot, why did he shoot Lucy in the leg? And then there's the massive time jump between the moment Lucy got shot and then fell off the cliff. What happened there? Who's to say that the injuries on Lucy's thigh weren't caused by an animal, but by a rabid Paul who was too desperate to bury his secret? Can we really say for sure that Lucy jumped off El Capitan and wasn't pushed by Paul? While rescuing the climbers on whom Lucy fell, the park rangers had made a mess of the scene. Anyway, so there was no way for Kyle to fully determine what had transpired. What Kyle did have was confirmation of the fact that Lucy was Paul's illegitimate daughter. After matching Lucy's DNA with that of Kate's, and after confronting Paul, he had a confession from him about how he'd caused Lucy's death. Kyle had failed Caleb and Teddy, and he wanted to do right by Lucy by getting Paul arrested. However, Paul couldn't let that happen, which was why he chose to shoot himself in the head. We didn't see how that impacted the lives of Mary and Suddy, but it's safe to say with Paul gone, they'll lead a life free of lies and deceit. Of course, the townsfolk won't let them live it down, but since they're innocent of any wrongdoing, I hope that Mary and Suddy will find the courage to move past Paul's failures as a husband, a father, a grandfather, and a law enforcement. Where did Kyle go? In Untamed's ending, Kyle kept his promise of releasing Lucy's body to Jay, another fellow park ranger who was close to Maggie and Lucy, so that she could be given a funeral that was in keeping with Native American practices. After attending Lucy's wake, Kyle went back to his cabin and felt his suicidal thoughts creeping into his mind again. He had tied off all the loose ends, and if he wanted, he could have made this the final chapter of his life, but he chose to give himself a second chance at living life. He apologized to Caleb's spirit, or the version of Caleb that existed in his mind that he wasn't ready to join him in the afterlife yet, and promised him that regardless of where he went next, Caleb would always be with him. Kyle actually came to this realization because of Jay, who told him that although Native Americans believed that their soul and the souls of their loved ones were tied to the land they were born on, they weren't restricted by it. No matter where they went, they carried the essence of that land with them, thereby allowing the dead to be by their side even when they were on a different continent and never making them feel lonely. It was pretty clear that Kyle was in a toxic relationship with Yosemite National Park. He felt that if he left the place, he would forget all about Caleb. And if he forgot about Caleb, then his spirit would cease to exist. But if he stayed in that place, he would kill himself in the hopes of joining him in the afterlife. It was only after he heard how Jay and his community viewed death that he found the courage to step out of Yosemite and script a new chapter of his life. Additionally, he ensured that Caleb's memories would live on through Nia and Gail by passing on Caleb's toys to them. Kyle and Jill saw Gail as the son they couldn't save. They had a myriad of complex emotions about Gail and Nia, but it was nice to see that Kyle had managed to process all that and passed on his son's toy box to Gail. Kyle also gave away his horse to Nia, thereby making her the protector of the land that was home to a diverse group of people and an even more diverse assortment of memories. Nia had shed her LA city girl image and had begun to love Yosemite. Her abusive husband was behind bars, hopefully with no chance of getting parole. She had built a healthy support system around her, which included Bruce, a fellow park ranger. I know that Jill is fond of Gail and would love to look after him while Nia solves crimes, but she has a lot on her plate currently. I am sure that after she's done dealing with that, she'll help Nia and Gail in every way she can. The limited series chose not to reveal the location to which Kyle was headed, and unless Untamed is miraculously greenlit for a second season, I suppose we'll never get to know what lies in Kyle's future. I'm sure that after cracking the case of Lucy's murder, the FBI would want him to oversee several other twisted cases. However, after everything that he has been through, I don't think Kyle would like to do anything with crime-solving for some time or forever. I think he'll try to cherish all the things that he didn't get to because of the downward spiral he had thrown himself into after Caleb's death. There's a whole world beyond the borders of Yosemite. Most of it isn't all that good, but it's there, and maybe Kyle would love to see it. Get a fresh new perspective on life. And after all that, if he feels that Yosemite is where he is most comfortable, maybe he'll return there, settle down with Lana, and choose to live out the rest of his days as quietly and peacefully as possible. Yeah, I know you all probably thought I forgot about Lana, but I didn't. I'm kind of miffed that in an effort to give Kyle a picture-perfect ending, the show just sort of forgot about Lana. By the looks of it, when nobody was around to support Kyle emotionally, Lana was there. I don't know how Kyle truly felt about Lana, but she was undoubtedly in love with him. So, leaving her hanging like that was just not done, at least in my opinion. He didn't need to do some grand gesture to let Lana know that it was time to go their separate ways. Something small and meaningful would have been enough. Well, hopefully Lana will get over it and find someone who is relatively more stable than Kyle. Thank you for watching this video, and do share your thoughts about the video in the comments section below. Hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to get your daily dose of cinema and series. See you at the next one, and for the time being, we are signing off.
Bye.